I said I worked under a license. See, all of this is terminology. The people would open up their ears and do what school teaches therapists to do. I'm not a therapist, but...
Tell the audience out there where you first got your start.
As like a therapist, I started off as a marriage, family, and child therapist about 18 years ago, before I obtained my doctorate degree in counseling psychology. None of y'all seem to be actively listening. Once I became a doctor of psychology, I transitioned from a therapist to a psychology expert in private practice. And so I no longer practice under a license. Now I'm in private practice.
You're making all the money now.
That's what I'm saying. And that's what people don't understand, right? So just to educate some folks a little bit, a license is really only needed so you can bill insurance.
The medical practitioners who heard this clip lost their mind.
That is incredibly misleading. Hello, my name is Dr. Raquel Martin. I'm a licensed clinical psychologist, professor of science. Yes, you do need a license to bill insurance, but that is not why licensure exists. Licensure protects you. It means I have completed specific education and supervised clinical hours, passed rigorous exams, and I'm accountable to a regulatory board. If I breach confidentiality, if I cross ethical boundaries or harm you, you have somewhere to file a complaint and be sure that I'm held accountable. A license is not paperwork just for billing. It's a consumer protection. When someone drops or loses or no longer has a license, they're not solely avoiding the insurance hassle. They're also removing your recourse if something goes terribly wrong. She keeps calling herself a therapist, and in most states, that's actually illegal without a license. You cannot legally use the title therapist or provide psychotherapy without licensure.
We have someone by the name of Dr. Cheyenne Bryant, who doesn't even have a license, but she calls herself a licensed therapist, and she says that she practices outside of the license. This is just to show you a bit of background about this person in terms of what we are dealing with. And in order to do this in-depth analysis, I will be focused on two videos, one from the channel of Abba and Preach and the other one from the RFG channel. The problem with this lady is that licenses are there for a reason. I am one who works in the clinical field of clinical research, and I know the importance of licenses. They're not only there just because you have a license. There are certain tests that you have to take called the board test. For some kind of clinical organization licenses, you have to take them on a yearly basis just to show that you qualify for the work that you're doing. So what she's doing is a lot of injustice to people. And before we go on with this, don't forget to subscribe on your way out so that we can actually grow this channel. And before we get on with it, let's continue with this video.
Guess what? If someone's under a board and they perform malpractice on you, you contact that board. They will immediately go after that person if your claims are valid. You don't need a lawyer. And so these unlicensed people who just operate in this gray zone, oh, I don't want to have these guidelines. The guidelines exist for a reason. You're not just here to do bro science. You study in the field, you learn the parameters. With that, there's some discretion involved, but there's still guidelines. And the problem for her, she admits that she talks to people with serious issues. People who have diagnosed PTSD, people who have diagnosed mental issues that are very severe.
That's dangerous.
And she's counseling them. And some of them have come out and talked about how harmful this is. So this is Miss Keys, who's a veteran and someone who was suffering from an injury after getting a gunshot to the head while she was in Iraq. Posts here evidence that she had sessions with Bryant's Institute, which is Cheyenne Bryant's. And then she goes on to leave this post where she says, I will not knock anyone for having an honorary doctorate who has done the work to obtain one, such as myself. However, make sure people are informed of that.
I think the problem now in the age of the internet is that everyone has a camera. They can give themselves any title. Like, I can come here on YouTube and I call myself a doctor, even though I'm not a qualified doctor. But especially if you're giving advice that may potentially harm someone, whether physically, emotionally, in whatever way of means, you need to disclose that, you know what, this is what I call myself, but just know that I'm not licensed, and this advice, you're taking it on your discretion. Like, there's a lot of channels here on YouTube, whether they talk about finances, whether they talk about crime, but they always disclose that whatever advice I'm giving, just know that I'm not licensed and you must take it with a bit of grain of salt. The problem is that she's also doing consultation, the one that's supposed to be done by people who are actually licensed, who actually went to school, because I don't even know if she really went to school, because whenever when she has interviews, she always flip-flops. So she's doing a bit of injustice, and you can just see in terms of what she has done to the poor lady here who actually went there needing help and actually consulted with the wrong person.
Cheyenne is the fact that she's positioned herself as a marriage and family expert despite never actually being married.
What in the hoo-dickory is going on here?
And you remember, I was a kept woman.
Yeah.
And I can say this, I was engaged twice.
During her March 2026 appearance on The Breakfast Club, she tried to clear things up by saying she doesn't teach people how to be married. According to her, she's still qualified to give married couples advice because it's apparently better to listen to a single woman who's happy and thriving than somebody stuck in a miserable and failed marriage.
That's like asking a drug addict for tips on how to stay sober. They're like taking driving lessons from somebody who can't drive. They're like taking cooking lessons from a white lady. You know what I'm saying? Because where they do that at?
Cheyenne also claimed that
Yeah, in terms of marriage advice, I don't mind. It's up to you to take her advice. And this is something that I don't think that one basically needs a license. So it's up to you on whoever you want to consult. And just because you're not married, I don't think that it automatically disqualifies you from giving marriage advice. But obviously, someone who's married might have more experience that they can offer.
that married people love talking down on single folk.
And what happens is married people like to shun on single folks. The Bible also says single people are happy people.
You heard that?
Look that up.
I've never heard that.
Social media immediately started side-eyeing the
Which
statement
Bible?
because nowhere in the Bible does it flat out say single people are happier than married people. That was very much Cheyenne's remix version.
Sure was.
And if there's one thing that critics say Cheyenne loves to do, it's reshape information until it fits the point she's trying to make. Unfortunately for her,
In terms of reshaping information, this is where the Bible, people like to misquote the Bible, especially for their benefit. That's how a lot of fights were started. So people will go to a specific section and says that this is what it says, so that it can actually meet whatever agenda that they're trying to push, which is what Dr. Cheyenne, I'm saying a doctor with quotation mark at this point, which is what she's trying to say.
people have started catching on. Another thing people started noticing about the not-so-good doctor is that Cheyenne has a habit of overgeneralizing relationships and boiling complicated dating issues down into simplistic hot takes. And somehow, no matter what the conversation is, women usually end up catching a stray. During a March 2026 appearance on Respectfully the Justin LaBoy Show, Cheyenne claimed she found women more delusional than men because she was personally meeting men who were supposedly better than the women she encountered.
There are so many men nowadays who are ready to be married. And I meet a lot of women who want to play the field. And when you start to look at women who want a man to just perform, which goes into the same field as gold digging, that's a woman who is considered a manizer.
Now, social media immediately hit her with the obvious question. If there are all these amazing marriage-ready men walking around, then how come Cheyenne herself still hasn't locked one down?
Yeah, that's a good question, but at the end of the day, she has to consider in terms of the sample size, since she's someone who apparently went to school and studied all the way to do her PhD. So this is someone who should have some sort of research experience. Because, yeah, just because you have something that shows that 1 + 1 = 3, but you also have to consider the former in terms of the statement that she's making, that there's a lot of men who are actually marriage ready as opposed to the woman. Is that how many of the ladies and how many of men are you asking? So just because you come across people who are that way doesn't necessarily mean that things are that way, because you have to have a very big sample in order to come up with a conclusion. And currently it seems like Dr. Cheyenne is just going around saying whatever that she wants, whatever that pushes her agenda. But sometimes I don't blame why people listen to her. Like, you can see she's a very good looking woman. So definitely a lot of people tend to listen to people who are good looking. I mean, it's life. Like, it is what it is.
Boom. And ooh.
Cheyenne went on to say that women were abandoning their values by choosing men based on income, status, and financial success rather than appreciating good character. She argued that many women were overlooking wonderful men and basically doing themselves a disservice. Then she took it even further by implying that more men were marriage material than women.
Girl.
I don't know about the one for saying more men are marriage material than women. But in terms of women overlooking men, I think certain women have too much criteria in terms of what they are looking for. The list is awfully long. And the thing about relationship or marriage, it's all about compromise. Like you can't have this longest list and you want everything to be exactly the same. Obviously, you're gonna meet someone who's actually a good match, but they're not gonna meet all those criteria, which means that automatically you're gonna cut them out. I think that's what she meant in this point, and I think for her that one it's a valid point, you know. But I'm not here to easily disagree in terms of whatever that she's saying. That we are here to critique in terms of the advice that she's giving. The one of saying that she's a clinical therapist, that one I don't agree with it. Okay, she didn't say clinical, she's a therapist. Let me go ahead and rephrase that. That one I don't agree because she doesn't even have any license. She's not registered to any board. Imagine you are visiting a doctor and the doctor doesn't even have a medical license. I mean, how are you gonna feel if that person is the one being on the operating table and it's life or death? But in terms of the other advices for dating, that one I think it's an open game. Like a lot of people can have advice in terms of dating based on what they've been exposed in their life. So that one, it's a very objective thing.
A lot of people didn't appreciate her minimizing the very real frustrations women face in modern dating while acting like women themselves were the core problem. Critics also pointed out that for somebody claiming to speak from a psychological and professional standpoint, she offered very little actual data, research, or evidence to back up her sweeping claims. It was mostly vibes, personal opinions, and dramatic sound bites dressed up as professional insight. And let's just say the internet wasn't exactly receiving it as groundbreaking wisdom. To many viewers, it started coming across less like unbiased expertise and more like a giant pick-me TED Talk from somebody still waiting to be chosen by the right man.
I'm drinking tea.
All the drama really came to a head in 2026 when Dr. Bryant started heavily promoting her book called Live Your Promise. In April of that year, she popped up on the Joe Budden podcast rocking a giant doc chain, like she had just graduated from Hustlers University with honors.
Hustlers University, the university for top G. Hey, man, maybe that's where she went. Anyway, you know I'm just making jokes. Please don't come after me. Those are just jokes. Obviously, it's not true.
To her credentials and professional background, and baby, that's when things took a sharp left turn into confusion. Cheyenne explained that she started out as a family and marriage therapist nearly 18 years ago, before eventually earning her doctorate in counseling psychology. According to her, once she became a doctor, she transitioned away from being a therapist and evolved into what she called a psychology expert with a private practice.
Psychology expert? Why not just say psychologist? I mean, she ain't got no damn doctorate. Hell, it don't sound like she got a bachelor's.
From there, the conversation took a turn when Cheyenne casually revealed that she no longer practiced under a license since she was in private practice.
Now, my doctors have private.
Yeah. I don't know who she's trying to scam. Just because a doctor operates privately, it means that they are the ones who are solely responsible. They have their own building, whether they are renting, and they are working for themselves. Then there's the public one where you're working for the government or someone else. That's all that it means. It doesn't mean that you don't need a license to operate now. I don't know who Dr. Shahid is trying to fool. I mean, especially in the age of the internet, that where anyone can actually go and Google and verify, you know. Because the thing is that, for example, degrees in respective of whether it's undergraduate, postgraduate, all the way out to up to PhD, you can actually Google, like if I Google my name on the university that I went to, my name shows up. It even shows up even the date of my graduation. But apparently, when people try to check for Dr. Cheyenne, nothing checks up.
Right under their licenses. What is she talking about? She could have did a quick little Google search. Now, if you're gonna lie, lie right. Don't lie wrong.
She jumped into educator mode and basically told folks they didn't understand how therapy works. She claimed licenses are mainly necessary for therapists who bill insurance companies. According to her,
No, that's not how it works. Especially in something that you actually deal with people, whether you are a nurse, whether you are a doctor, whether you are a therapist, whether you are a psychologist, whether you work in the lab for phlebotomy or technologist. There's a lot of careers, especially if you have to deal with people, whether mental, physical. You need licenses. Like that's a must, and you cannot operate without a license. You have to continually renew. For some, they actually on a whether a 3 years basis, 1 year basis, and you have to pay and you have to renew. And there's also like a board test that you have to write. Then there's almost like a refresher that you have to go and refresh just to show that you actually still remember the things. So there's a lot of things that go into licenses. I feel like she doesn't have the knowledge that she's talking about. Like there's a lot of things that she's missing up, especially if you want to scam people. Rather scam people accordingly and actually do your own research before you actually come to the internet and state things, because we're gonna go ahead and debunk whatever that you're saying.
licensed professionals must diagnose clients to obtain insurance approval, but many people allegedly don't want diagnoses attached to their records. So instead, they pay out of pocket. Cheyenne framed this entire setup as if she were bravely liberating clients from the oppressive shackles of insurance paperwork. Then she took it a step further and admitted she understood this approach could create a gap in the Black community between people who could afford private sessions and people who couldn't. But in her eyes, the real issue was making sure therapists got paid what they deserved. In other words, if you're in emotional crisis, don't forget your therapist is struggling too. And when Joe and the cast brought up the criticism surrounding her lack of licensing, Cheyenne brushed it off by claiming her critics simply weren't ready to heal. According to her, she wasn't the issue at all. Everybody else was just spiritually and emotionally immature.
Child, please.
Ironically, while insisting she wasn't diagnosing anybody, Cheyenne immediately started diagnosing her critics anyway. Suddenly, everybody had accountability issues, parental trauma, mommy issues, and unresolved wounds. She especially seemed convinced that women criticizing her were projecting jealousy and maternal trauma onto her success.
Iron is so thick you could just spread it on a piece of toast.
Then,
Yeah, I think I'm gonna go ahead and end this video right here. If you want the full video, I'll leave the link in the description below. I think there's a problem in terms of the YouTube market. There's a lot of people who are actually giving themselves titles that they're not qualified for. There's a lot of people who are giving financial advice. There's a lot of people who are giving weight loss advice. There's a lot of people who are giving whether therapy or whatever. And a lot of these people, they actually do disclose that they're not qualified. When it goes wrong is when people start calling themselves doctors and there's no way to prove. I think YouTube needs to have a way to double down on this. I'm saying YouTube because a lot of people we watch whether podcasts and on YouTube, and a lot of us we believe in terms of whatever that we see. I think if whenever your channel or your name, you're calling yourself a doctor, there has to be certain documentations that you have to upload on YouTube so that those documents can get verified. And I think there needs to be like some sort of check mark that shows on your channel to say that this person indeed is a doctor and we have verified their documents. And if you don't have that check mark, you have to write it somewhere, or when you start making a video, you have to disclose that, okay, I call myself a doctor, but just know that I'm not a licensed doctor and I am not registered with any regulatory board or clinical board, whatever board that you have to fall under, so that people can actually take your advice with a grain of salt instead of you going around and misleading people. And we saw earlier in the video that there's someone who actually went there and consulted with her, and the person generally needed help. And it's not good, really. It's not good. And in terms of the other advice that she's giving, whether marriage advice, whether there's men who are marriage ready, those are small things we can overlook. You as an adult, if you're hearing someone giving you marriage advice or whatever, it's up to you whether you take it or not. That one, I have no fault in terms of her. I fault her in terms of this one where she calls herself a qualified doctor who's ready to receive patients. And in terms of my field, people who need help, we call them patients. So basically, you're treating someone or something, but how do you treat them when you're not even registered and you don't even know what you're looking for? I think that's where Dr. Cheyenne has to change. Yeah, man, that's all that I have in terms of this topic. And if you enjoy this type of video, don't forget to like and subscribe. It really goes a long way to help to grow the channel. And I appreciate you. And I'll see you same time, same place.